to this one over here, implementing dynamic deployment methods. So this is just looking at not only autopilot, but what other dynamic deployment methods do we have available to us? I talked there about the subscription activation. So that's how we can change the edition of Windows. In other words, the device was a Windows 10 Pro computer, and autopilot, we run autopilot, and next thing it's part of our enterprise edition. So it's part of our enterprise package that we have for Microsoft. So that's done through the subscription activation. We can also do subscription activation outside of autopilot, so it can also be done directly from your Intune, etc. Now, device management, auto-enrolling existing Windows devices to something like Intune. We've seen how we can do that. And then, of course, the other option is our provisioning packages. So with regards to a provisioning package, let's just get to that section there in our book. What I might do is let's just go and have a look over here. So, dynamic deployments. Okay, so that's the sort of things we can do with our provisioning packages. We can configure the Windows user interface, add additional files or apps, adjust connectivity settings, mobile network requirements, certificates, security policies, remove installed software, etc., etc. We can configure things like computer account name, certificates for the computer. We can do the edition upgrade from them, add folders, specify policies. We can specify local admins on the computer, etc. So very, very highly configurable. This slide here, so this picture here, I don't think that's in the student book. It is in your student book as well. You just scroll a bit further down, it's in the student book there. But this is essentially our Windows configuration designer. So you'd start over here on the start page. They've got a number of wizards on the start page that you can step through to do your configuration. Regardless, once you've done it, you save it. You can come into your saved project and you can go and access every single possible configuration that you can do through this Windows configuration designer tool. So as we can see over here, runtime settings, my accounts, computer account. So for example, there, you can specify the name of your computer, the domain name that you want the computer to be joined to. Under your users, I could go and create my local admin user for the computer over here, add certificates to the computer, connectivity profiles, etc. We're only up to C. As you can see, lots and lots of different things that we can configure. Once we're done with setting up our configuration, we export it. So that will export it to a PPKG file. And then from there, you just deploy the PPKG file against the computer that you want this configuration to be set on. So it can be used in a BPYD scenario. You could say to your user, go get whatever computer you want, as long as it's got Windows 10 Pro on it. And then you can go and do a provisioning package where you upgrade it to your enterprise edition, you add a local admin to it, etc., etc. User leaves the organization, you simply have another PPKG that you run against their computer, and it's back to its default state when they came with the computer initially. So it can be quite useful from BYOD perspective. Azure AD join with automatic MDM enrollment. So a similar concept to joining an on-premises ADDS domain. We've already covered this off through the course. So basically, devices joined to Azure AD and auto-enrolled into our MDM. We've already seen that. Alrighty. What about planning a transition to modern endpoint management? So this is all about, we've got domain controllers, we're doing things through group policy and config manager, but we now want to go and add some cloud-based solutions. We're going to look at here exploring using code management to transition to modern management, prerequisites for our code management, our modern management considerations, upgrades and migrations, migrating data. And so it's a part of this here is just looking at migration side of things. This here is really concentrating on the cloud management side of things. So they mentioned there, code management simplifies the transition to modern management. In other words, you are managing your devices by still using the things you are familiar with, the on-premises side of things, but then also you start to managing things using cloud-based resources. So your Azure Active Directory along with your Intune. You've got single sign-on across your cloud, across your on-premise resources. With your Intune, you manage policies on internet-connected devices without using group policy. You enable code management for on-premises Active Directory devices. So the devices must be hybrid Azure AD joined. We need our Azure AD Connect, the latest version of Azure AD Connect installed and configured to sync computer accounts to Azure AD. Intune MDM must be set up and configured for automatic enrollment. So on Monday when we did this, we did not have this set up. So when client 2 rebooted, client 2 became Azure AD joined, hybrid Azure AD joined, but it wasn't enrolled into the MDM. If you do have automatic enrollment set up, which we now have, and you went and enabled this, it would then become enrolled as well. So if you like, in your labs, unfortunately, they've taken out the lab that works, that does co-management, because they removed config manager, and we used to do stuff with config manager as well. But if you like, in your labs, when you're busy with your labs, you can go and take client 1, add client 1 to your organizational unit you created on Tuesday morning, and client 1 then will become Azure AD joined. Once you reboot it, it'll become Azure AD joined, and you will see it pop up in Intune later on as well. So if you want to try that, you can try that as well. Yes.
Did we enable automatic enrollment, or was that?
Yep.
Yeah.
You did that on Tuesday, so that's where your users were doing an Azure AD join and automatically enrolling in Intune. I think you hadn't done it or something like that, and you didn't get enrolled into Intune, or your user didn't have a license or something like that, wasn't it? But your user didn't. You ended up with 2 certificates, not 3 certificates, when you had to look at your certificates. Casting your mind back to Tuesday. I think with yours it was a problem with the license.
I think you typed in the email.
Yeah, not just the registration. Not
Oh, okay, that's what you did. Okay, yeah. All good, good. But yeah, so you remember those 3 certificates you got on Tuesday? So you had automatic enrollment today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, transitioning workload to Microsoft Intune. So once you have joined your on-premises Active Directory device to Azure AD, you can straight away do stuff like factory reset, selective wipes, delete devices, restart devices, fresh starts. You could choose to transition some of your workloads, such as email profiles, Wi-Fi profiles, VPN profiles, certificate profiles. So there's various resource access profiles. Maybe you want to go and start managing your updates through Intune, etc. So you could maybe move some of your Windows update policies across. Endpoint protection. There's a whole bunch of endpoint protection you can do. We've done a little bit in the course, but you can see they're listed in your student book. Defender antivirus, application guard. I think you had a question, could you do application guard through endpoint? So there you go. Firewall, smart screen encryption, exploit guard, application control, so WDAC, Defender for endpoint information protection, etc. All those various endpoint protections. Device configurations. So our various configuration policies or profiles. And again, be careful with that it's not conflicting with group policy settings that you have got. So,
Hey, David,
yes.
for core management, we need a config manager, or we can just do it from AD as well.
Sorry, when you say core management, so for the co-management,
Yes.
yes, generally with your co-management, you are using config manager
Yes.
on your premises already. If you do not have config manager, it doesn't matter. Then you would just be using group policy. I think one of you, I think with Sunil mentioned they don't have config manager. So it's in your case, Sunil, you could still do co-management in that group policy is still managing your devices, and slowly you can move stuff over to Intune. But generally, when we're talking about co-management, you have config manager there still. So you're doing management between your config manager and your Intune.
It's pretty much like just some settings in group policies. Is that correct? Or
sorry, say again.
How would you like? What specific things will we need to turn on in group policy for that? For that to be, yeah.
You don't need to turn anything on in group policy. Basically, all you do is you enable your automatic enrollment into Intune, and you set up your hybrid Azure AD join. So your devices then will already be sitting on-prem with group policy settings applied to them, and now they will appear in your tenancy, also enrolled into Intune. But of course, bear in mind that as soon as you do that, if you've already got device configuration profiles in Intune that might be conflicting with policies and group policy, you might get some issues. Generally, the way it works is group policy will override any conflicts in Intune, but you can change that.
Correct.
So I think in 2020 they enabled you to change that, but there's no other configuration settings. There's no configuration setting you need to do in group policy. To work with your later versions of config manager in a co-managed environment where you're using config manager to do some stuff in the cloud and that, there you need to do some configuration settings in config manager.
Okay, yeah, I've done that. I was just wondering how can we do it from group policy. So it's pretty much as long as the automatic enrollment is enabled and we have got AAD Connect, that means pretty much every single device can come across to Intune.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we will talk. I think there's a slide coming up a little bit later on how we can manage that. If not, we'll just talk through that because I know they've changed some of the content here. Okay, so when we're looking at our modern management considerations, the whole idea is we want to remove the imaging process wherever possible. And having said that, we still need to image. Okay, we mentioned that already. So modern management transforms an existing operating system with little or no user interaction and without deploying a new image, as we saw with the autopilot or with our provisioning package. Deploys faster, more efficiently, with lower network utilization. So that's a big thing, lower network utilization. Yes or no? Okay, so if I'm installing applications, maybe I've got a lot of network utilization still, but it should be lower than if I did an image. Because with an image, I still got to deploy the image together with the applications. But I think when you actually deploy a lot of applications, this might be a bit of a question mark over here. Yes.
That's when you'd make use of, if you've got a heap of apps.
Yeah, your white glove, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your pre-provisioning, yes, you can do that, absolutely. Okay, requires Windows 10 or later on a target device. In-place upgrade recommended for devices still running 7 or 8.1. In other words, in-place upgrade, upgrading it to Windows 10 or Windows 11. Modern deployment can change and install Windows 11 OS in many ways. So I can remove pre-installed software, we can upgrade a Windows 11 edition, we can join a Windows 11 device to ADDS for Azure AD. A little bit of repetition there, we've covered that off already. And that slide over here is a little bit of a summary of what we've covered off. So I want to do imaging. MDT Config Manager will help me to do that, not Windows Autopilot. Rebuild or reset a device, yep, all of them. Ability to perform a bare metal build, yep, not an autopilot, so that's why we still need traditional imaging. Pre-installed OS, can be used with any pre-installed operating system. Okay, not sure why they got no over there, because it really doesn't matter what your pre-installed operating system is. You can always use imaging. It probably should be yes. What do they say in our student book? Can be used. Yeah, I think in the student book it says yes. The student book is correct. Slide's still wrong. Installation of applications when devices is being built. Yes. I put a question mark over here. Autopilot doesn't really do the installation of applications. That's done through Intune. So yes, but it's not the Autopilot that does it. It's the Intune that does it. Deployment of applications post-build? No. Yes, no, because Autopilot doesn't run post-build, but Intune can. So maybe they should say here Windows Autopilot stroke Intune. Use the state migration tool. Works with the traditional method, not with Windows Autopilot, but if we're using OneDrive and Enterprise State Roaming, we might minimize the amount of data that needs to be migrated. And performing an in-place upgrade, yes, no, unless we're using Microsoft Config Manager to go and upgrade it from 7 or 8.1 to Windows 10, Windows 11, and then run our Autopilot, as we mentioned earlier on. Okay, scenarios to consider using imaging with modern management. So device experiences a blue screen of death, cannot boot into Windows at all, resulting in the need for a bare metal build. Or when you deliver a series of complex applications and dependencies on a device which is then co-managed. So what they're saying over here is maybe the complex applications and dependencies is too hard to do through Intune. Bear in mind, I mentioned earlier on where that company went and installed AutoCAD using Intune. So you can do it through Intune. It just means it might be a lot more extra work. So you may choose to rather use imaging in that case. Hardware failure of a device that requires network connectivity to install applications or join a corporate Active Directory domain. This is a weird one. If you've got hardware failure of a device that requires network connectivity, surely you just fix the hardware that requires network connectivity. So they're saying, well, you haven't got network connectivity, so we're going to have to go and re-image the computer. Well, just fix your network connectivity. Anyway. So anything like a storage drive replacement, bin deployment, or device that doesn't support an upgrade path, we need to do imaging. So yes, there will still be place for imaging in our environments. Scenarios for migrating user data, device replacement, devices being upgraded from an older OS to Windows 11, in-place upgrade not possible, clean installation is needed. So when we're doing a migration, they mentioned over there 2 different scenarios. Side by side and wipe notes. What do we mean by that? Side by side, I've got a new computer and an old computer. So I basically have my new computer and I'm migrating the stuff from the old computer onto the new computer. I can do that at any time. Wipe and load or a refresh migration. Then my source and destination computer are the same. So before I go and do the installation on the new computer, I may want to go and get all my data off it, store it on an intermediate storage, and then replace it afterwards because it might be lost after the install. Having said that, migration moves files and settings to a clean installation of the Windows operating system. But when we do a reinstallation of the operating system, if it detects that we've already got Windows on that computer, it doesn't actually delete the Windows. It creates a windows.old file. So my windows.old file still has got all my old stuff in it. So potentially I could go and extract my data settings, etc., from that windows.old folder. Probably a good idea though to still use a state migration tool to get those settings off, just in case it gets damaged in some way. But yeah, if you forgot to do it, you can probably still get it from the windows.old folder. This again is just talking about our traditional methods. So an in-place upgrade will preserve the environment. You don't need to reinstall apps or transfer data. You can roll back the upgrade at any point, but only certain upgrade paths are possible, and you have to use the Windows default image, as opposed to migration. So I'm doing a fresh install. I've got a now new standardized environment. I can control what migrates. It cleans up the environment, but we do need to reinstall the apps. And we can use a custom Windows image. If I'm using a custom Windows image, well, maybe my app's already part of that Windows custom Windows image. Here is that task sequence in Config Manager for in-place upgrades. So apply autopilot for existing devices. So this is the task sequence that will go through and upgrade a Windows 7 or 8.1 computer to Windows 10 or Windows 11. And from there, autopilot can go and do the rest. That's transforming a traditional domain joined endpoint into an Azure AD managed device. Performs a rebuild all within the same piece of automation. So that's in the newer version of Config Manager. We can do that.
That's
Yes.
pretty much done after that, because from that point, the user takes over.
Yes.
Like you would just.
Yeah,
Like,
so you just run that task sequence and that does it.
like it was talking about before, like in an environment where you co-manage, you would have the client install as well, the SCCM client. As part of the task sequence,
Yeah.
where you do that by
Yeah,
autopilot.
absolutely. No, you can do that as part of your task sequence.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, migrating data. So we still got the user state migration tool. We've mentioned that, so I can still use that. Capture settings and data from the source computer, destroy the migration store, and then restore those captured settings. So this is my scan state. This is my restore state. Comprises two components, the USMD tool. User state migration tool has been around since XP days. So it just gets upgraded for every consecutive version of the operating system. Or in the more modern method, I could be using things like enterprise state roaming and known folder move. So in other words, my stuff is sitting in the cloud. So I might have minimal data that needs to be migrated. Okay, that's a repetition of what we've been talking about. But yeah, again, they're talking there about the Windows.old folder. And this over here just talks about our known folder move. So with a known folder move, some of the important things around that. Get to that section. Okay, automatically migrate user files to their business OneDrive. Bear in mind, when you enable this, if a user is sitting at home on a slow connection, it might then take days to transfer their files because they've got a massive amount of stuff on their computer. So you might prompt them to move it across, so they can choose, okay, I'm not going to do it right now. I'll do it when I go into the office on Monday because I don't have enough bandwidth at home. Silent means it's just going to happen automatically. So just be aware of that. If you do enable this and users are at home on slow links, it could take quite a long time. Once it's done, so it just means there'd be mindful bandwidth for a minute. Once it's done, there is a cached copy on their computer anyway. They call it a sync copy, not a cached copy, but it's the same concept. So they can work when offline. Generally, they'll be online. But yeah, if they're offline, they can still work on their various stuff because it is sitting on their computer anyway. As soon as they connect up, it'll simply sync it back up. Cannot use known folder move if you are using folder redirection or for any unsupported file types. Just something to bear in mind. That over there is just showing us migrating data when modern transitioning. So create a user state migration tool package from Config Manager. Set up a state migration point. Task sequence can include user state migration tools. So this is within your MDT or your Config Manager. And you can control what user state migration tool does through these various configuration files. So I've got my application data that's going to be migrated, my user data that's going to be migrated, and my users settings that are going to be migrated. And this is basically a file relating to the configuration manager settings. Yes. Go ahead. No, no. So your profile there is just for the user logging into that computer. Their profile will stay. It doesn't change their profile at all on their computer. You mean if you don't want to do the known folder move, you don't have to? No, so you turn that on, you enable that. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it. All good. So that's from a business perspective. If you don't want to use it from a business perspective, if a user doesn't want to use it, so let's just go back to that previous slide here. If the user doesn't want to use it, then set it up to prompt the user, because then they can simply say, no, I'm not going to. Okay, but then their stuff isn't going to sit there, and that might not suit your business requirements. If you're doing it as a silent operation, then from the user's perspective, they've got no control over it. It's just going to get moved across into their OneDrive for Business. Migrating workloads when modern transitioning. So consider cloud-based management of your client devices when legacy OS versions are removed. Reduce your Microsoft Config Manager use where it can reduce or eliminate a layer of complexity. And review other considerations of moving to 100% cloud-based management. So what they're saying over here is if you're a smaller organization, you don't have a huge on-premises setup. You know, you might be using Config Manager for some stuff, or maybe not using it at all. Then, if you start to move stuff into the cloud, well, maybe you can go 100% cloud-based. If you're a large organization, so large organizations, generally, they will continue using Config Manager and leverage co-management in Intune. So you're maintaining your investment in your Config Manager and only migrating workloads where it makes sense. So that's all they're saying over here. You know, choose to migrate stuff across where it makes sense. But if you're a small organization, you might move everything across and go 100% cloud-based. Now, I didn't see that slide come up, which I was looking for, but what I'll do is just a quick whiteboard session here to explain what I'm talking about over here with regards to our settings. The whiteboard. Okay. I've got a whole bunch of computers in my network, including some servers. All of these are joined to my domain. I then go and enable hybrid Azure AD join. So what happens to my Azure AD tenancy is when these computers are rebooted, all of these computers become Azure AD joined. But what happens is, I didn't want these servers to be joined, and I didn't want that particular desktop to be joined. Well, bad luck, everything's joined. So what we can do is we can create a group policy that says, deny hybrid Azure AD join, or everything. And I'll create another group policy that says allow scoped only to the computers that I want to allow. So remembering, when you do this, you're probably going to be doing it as a pilot. What we did in the lab is we created a second organizational unit that we were then syncing up. But in your work environment, you're probably syncing up your entire domain or your entire forest. So it wouldn't work then. And as soon as you go and enable this, all of these are going to become hybrid Azure AD join. So use group policy to control it. You simply disable it for everything and you just enable it for the devices that you want to enroll. Later on, these guys might need to be enrolled. You simply go and change your group policy set. So that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, folks, we are almost done. We're running into the final sections here of the lesson and the course. So, what is Windows 365? Okay, there's two editions of Windows 365. There is the Windows 365 Business. So what this is a virtual desktop that is sitting in the cloud. Okay, so rather than your user having a computer with the Windows operating system on, they are accessing this PC in the cloud. How do you access in the cloud? Well, basically, it's done through HTML version 5. So as long as they've got a browser, doesn't matter. Could be a tablet, could be a Mac OS that they're using, could be a Windows computer they're using, doesn't matter. All they need is a browser. They browse to their PC in the cloud, and this is their business PC. So it's quite a cool way of doing BYD. When I worked for Logicalis back in 2010, I think it was, we were already doing it back then. So we didn't have the cloud back then, or it was in its infancy. But Microsoft had introduced remote desktop for the PCs in Server 2008.2. You could go and build an RDS server and deploy your desktops from an RDS server. And we implemented that at Logicalis. So basically, we ran in our own data center. We had an RDS server set up. Every person in the organization basically had a virtual machine desktop running in our data center. We'd give an employee a basic laptop that had, well, it was a Windows laptop, but it didn't matter. It could be any laptop. But they didn't use the Windows on that laptop for doing their work. What they would do is that RDP to the desktop, and all the work would be done on that desktop sitting in the data center. If the sales guy forgot his computer at home or forgot it in the taxi or whatever it was, didn't matter. There you go. There's your computer. Give him a new computer. Opens it up. RDPs to his desktop in the data center, and off he went and did his work. So it worked really, really well. It just didn't work very well for my engineers, because my engineers were working in customer data centers. And the problem is, when you're in a customer data center, you don't have internet connectivity. So, of course, they couldn't do anything then. So for my engineers, we still needed to use normal images. But for the rest of the staff, it worked really, really well. So take that concept out of your own personal data center and move it into somebody else's data center. That's all it is. So this is a cloud-based offering of your desktop virtualization, we'll call it that. So you are not having to manage the hardware. It's being managed by Microsoft. The user can use any device they want. All they need is a browser. What about business data? If the user leaves the organization, doesn't matter. It's sitting there in the cloud. You're in control of it. So it's quite a nice option. But it's a little bit expensive. Microsoft makes lots of money out of this. So for my business, for smaller companies, up to 300 seats, 300 people, if you've got up to 300 people in the organization, you can go with the business option. Quite easy to use. You basically manage this all through the 365 admin center. There's no licensing prerequisites, no dependencies on Azure or Active Directory. Now, I'm not really sure why they say there's no dependencies on no dependencies on Azure or Active Directory, fair enough. But you still need Azure Active Directory, because, of course, you still need to be able to authenticate for your 365. But all they're saying is it's quite simple to manage. You don't need Azure knowledge, etc., etc. For us, though, in larger organizations, we'd probably go with the 365 Enterprise. So this is really meant for small businesses. So what do we get in addition for the Enterprise version? So unlimited seats. You've got the option to create a custom cloud PC based on a custom device image. So here are default images you use. Here you could use your own custom image if you wanted. And there are more management options, along with full integration with Microsoft Intune. You will manage your 365 Enterprise through Intune, as opposed to here you manage it through your Microsoft 365 portal.
Sorry, David, can we get the shared screen, please?
Yes, Bobby. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
I beg your pardon. I didn't go and share it again afterwards. Beg your pardon. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, so what I was doing is I was just showing over here. So here's my Microsoft 365 Business Edition, and that's my Enterprise Edition over there. Okay, and basically here, what you're seeing over here is users just logging in. So they're going in via the HTML browser. There's his computer, Alex's cloud PC. So you can see it's got 2 virtual CPUs, 4 gig of RAM, 64 gig of storage. He clicks on this, opens up in the browser, and off it goes. And those are his options under the settings over there. So to configure our Windows 365, assign your license to your users. This is now looking at this here. So we are looking at this one here. We're looking at the Enterprise Edition, not the 365 Business Edition. Create an Azure network connection. What is that all about? Let's just get to my section over here. Great policy. Bear with me a sec. I'm just finding what I'm looking for over here because it's slightly different in my document I've got here than what you've got there. The 365 provision. Okay, so this is going to require some Azure skills. So while we said we didn't need Azure skills over here, that's because this is 365 business. Here we're talking about enterprise. So we need some Azure person to go and set this up. What is this Azure network connection? Well, basically, we are creating a connection between our on-premises network and Azure. That's just because the user is going to be using the PC in Azure. Okay, it's called Windows 365, but it's working in the Azure cloud, and it might need to access resources on-prem. So that's why we're creating that Azure network connection. So an on-premises network connection required so the cloud PCs can join the organization's domain and access on-premises resources. So in other words, these Windows 365 enterprise PCs running in the cloud can be domain joined to our domain. Cool. You'll be connecting to a virtual network configured in Azure that has been set up for connectivity with the on-premises domain controller and network. So work with your organization's Azure administrator to identify what needs to be done. If we're going to be using a custom image, so configure the custom image, create your provisioning policies, and then configure and apply your device and application policies. Again, we'd be doing this through our Intune. And as they mention over there in your student book, to create an on-premises network connection. So the connection will have been created in Azure. And then we go in through our endpoint manager, go to devices, Windows 365, under provisioning, on-premises network connection, create connection, and you will then link it to the connection that has been created in Azure. Now, if it has not been created yet, you can actually go through and create it at that point as well. They give you a bit of a screenshot over there. So you can see their name, subscription, resource group, virtual network subnet, etc. So that's setting that up there. Configure your custom device image. Let me just go onto the section here so we can see that's back over this. And that. Okay, so here we go. Here just talking about creating our Azure network connection. Sorry, I was talking about that, but you couldn't see what I was talking about. So there you go. There it is. Configuring a custom device image if you want to have a custom device image. So devices, Windows 365, device image add. Creating your provisioning policy. So cloud pieces are created and assigned to users based on provisioning policies. So you do this in your Intune. So devices, Windows 365 provisioning policy, create your policy, assign it to your groups afterwards once you've done that. And from there, we can go through and administer it. So looking at the administration side. So what can we do? Well, pretty much once it's up and running, I manage it like I manage any other computer from Intune. So it can take up to 60 minutes for the policy creation process to complete, depending on when the Azure AD Connect sync last happened. But then once it's up and running, I can go and restart computers, sync computers, rename computers, do quick scans, full scans, whatever. Whatever we can do with any computer enrolled into Intune, we can do with these Windows 365 devices that have been enrolled into our Intune. A couple of things particular to cloud PCs: re-provisioning, resizing, collecting diagnostics, just collecting diagnostics. That's not particular to cloud PC, but yeah, we can collect diagnostics from the cloud PC as well as from any other PC. But what is re-provisioning? So re-provisioning allows admins to re-provision a cloud PC. So basically it resets the cloud PC to its initial state. User data application customizations aren't automatically deleted depending on the specific configuration. So basically my re-provisioning is similar to my reset. And then resizing a cloud PC. Generally, the way it works is when your PC is fired up, it has, as we saw there earlier on with Alex's PC, if we just come back to that previous PowerPoint slide, let's go back a little bit. So we had 2 virtual CPUs, 4 gig of RAM, 64K storage. What happens if Alex was doing some stuff that needed more number crunching? I need four virtual CPUs, or he needs a bit more memory now. He needs 6 gig of RAM instead of 4 gig of RAM, or he needs a bit more storage. Well, I can't just go and change this. I can't go and, add some more vCPUs like I would in a virtual machine environment. What I do is I re-provision the computer, because these are all set up already by Microsoft. So I've gone for a particular size of VM, which gave me 2 vCPUs, 4 gig of RAM, and 64K of storage, 64 gig of storage. So instead, we resize it. So we shut down the old computer and we bring up a new computer, but provision still with everything that he had previously. Okay, so that's going to take a little bit of time, obviously, where we go and shut the old one down and bring the new one up. As I mentioned there, cloud PC will reboot it, users immediately disconnected. If they're available license, the upgrade downgrade takes place. And they can then log back in, and they'll have the new or additional CPUs, memory, etc., depending on what we needed. Yes, go ahead. Well, you can choose whatever image you want, and you can put your own image on as well. So you can do it with Windows 10, do it with Windows 11, or you can do it with your own bespoke image. Okay, so that's the 365. That's the later edition. Before that, I think back in 2019 already, we had the Azure Virtual Desktop. So that was the first of the offerings. So with Azure Virtual Desktop, cloud-based desktop and app virtualization service on Azure. So we can think of it as a platform as a service on Azure. Again, we can use Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, whatever, to connect to it. So we got centralized security management for user desktops with Azure AD, simplified management, performance management, etc. But the difference with my Azure Virtual Desktop is I need Azure skills to go and create these various Azure Virtual Desktops. And I only pay for what we use. So the amount of time that it's being used in Azure, we only pay for that, as opposed to 365 where you pay a monthly subscription. So that's the main difference between the two. So for this, I need Azure skills. It's a lot more configurable than what I have in the 365 Enterprise, but maybe you don't need that configurability. So again, it just depends on what your requirements are. So they mentioned here, with our Azure Virtual Desktop, we can establish a multi-session Windows 10 11 experience. We can deploy 365 apps, optimize them for multi-user virtual scenarios. We can migrate existing RDS and Windows Server desktops and applications. We can virtualize both our desktop environment and individual applications, etc., etc. Again, you can enroll these into your Intune, so you can manage these as you manage any other Intune computer. Now, the difference with the 365, Enterprise 365, it is a personal PC. that a user has, and you pay a license for every single user. Here we can have pooled PCs. So in the case of a support environment, where you might have a bunch of computers that your support people use, using virtual desktop, if I've got, say, 5 support people on duty at any one time, I just need 5 virtual desktops. When that person logs off, the other person can log on and do their work, just like we would have it in a physical scenario where they came and logged onto a computer. So again, I could have maybe 15 people in support with 5 people at any one time in a shift, 8-hour shifts, giving me 24-hour coverage. And all I need is 5 computers in that case. If I was using 365, I'd need 15 subscriptions. So again, that could be a cost saving from that perspective. But we can also have individual ownership as well. So we can have pooled ownership or individual ownership with Azure Virtual Desktop. Configuring Azure Virtual Desktop. So create and connect to Windows 10 or 11 desktop through your Azure Virtual Desktop. Create a personal host pool or shared one, depending on how you're setting it up. Your prerequisites: Azure account with an active subscription. Account must be assigned owner or contributor, built-in RBAC role. Virtual network in the same Azure region you want to deploy your session hosts. User account in Azure Active Directory for connecting to the desktop. And a remote desktop client installed on your device to connect to the desktop. So here, remembering you're using Azure, so you need an Azure Active Directory account. In Enterprise 365, you didn't really need that, because the user, you could set that computer up, join it to your domain, and you could be using Azure AD. You could be using ADDS for your authentication, but you'd still need Azure AD for your Intune and all the rest of it. So it's not that you don't have Azure AD. Okay, you can administering Azure Virtual Desktop. You can use Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell. Don't worry too much about this, but this is basically how we would manage virtual machines in Azure. So because we're doing this all in Azure, this is how we would manage it in Azure. It's no different to the way we would manage any virtual machine in Azure. So either the Azure command line, Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell. Azure CLI is essentially like a Linux way of doing things, and Azure PowerShell is the Windows way of doing things.
Was the Azure CLI called Graph?
No, Azure CLI is Azure CLI. It's basically it's like, if you go into Azure, I'll show you quickly. I've got my lab running.
Bash.
Yeah, it's a bash. Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. Actually, I don't know if I can show you in Azure, because I don't think I've got a license in this lab to show you. But yeah, basically, when you open it up, it just looks like a command prompt. So it's a black screen, white writing, looks like a command prompt. As you said, it's basically bash.
Yeah. Depending on your access, you could do particular things with it.
Yeah. Let's just go on. Yeah, I don't think I can. I don't think we've got Azure subscription in this lab. Let's just have a look. So 201. And actually, I could probably do that here. So you see up here, marks of 22 cylinder. Okay. See this over here. This is called your Cloud Shell. Come on, there we go, Cloud Shell. If I click on Cloud Shell, that'll work out to bigger. Yeah, it's probably not going to work. It's probably not going to work because I don't have Azure here. Stop that. Man, it's doing weird stuff. Okay, why is this thing not master doing weird things? Yeah, stop it. Try to resize it and going weird now. Okay, it's big now. Man. Okay, can you stop moving it for me now? Okay, there we go. All right. Now notice here with our cloud shell, it says, do you want to do bash or do you want to do PowerShell? So if I go to bash, I think it's going to fail because it's going to want to create some, create an Azure subscription. Yeah, it's no valid subscription. But yeah, basically what that'll do, it'll open up basically like a command prompt, and I can enter my various Azure commands from a Linux perspective, as opposed to PowerShell, where I can go and enter stuff through our PowerShell.
So you need a separate license for that.
You need a subscription to be able to create stuff in Azure for that.
Yeah.
We don't have that in this lab.
Okay.
So we can't go and create VMs and what have you. Well, basically to run, what this does here, when you go and click on this cloud shell, it actually creates a virtual machine for you in Azure that you use to configure your Azure environment. But because I don't have a Azure subscription in this lab, I can't do that. When you're using your Azure desktops, then you would have a subscription because you need a subscription. You're building those VMs in Azure.
Okay.
So you can manage those VMs through this cloud shell if you want. So through either command line or PowerShell.
Okay.
Okay.
Or the GUI.
Or the GUI. Correct. Okay, folks. What do we got left to do? We have got a few things. So for some of you had already finished yesterday when I mentioned the badge. So I think that some of you already got home. We would have got an email yesterday from Lumify around about lunchtime telling you about a badge for your course. So claim your badge for completing the course. Microsoft don't do certificates anymore. So this is your certificate for the course. Please go and look for that email. Check and see if it's not there. Maybe it got into junk email or something like that. Follow that link. There's a link in the email. Click on that and go and redeem your badge. That badge then can be linked to your LinkedIn profile and things like that. So that firstly. Secondly, end of course survey. I will give you the link for that now. So the end of course survey is for you guys in the classroom. You can just click on a little star on your desktop that says metrics that matter. Which will open up something like this. Yep, okay, there we go. For the guys on the Zoom call, I will send you a link to this. Okay, so for the guys on the call, if you click on that link, it'll do the same thing. So it'll open up let me just make sure it works. Yep. Okay. And here, just going to do a search for our class. So I just type 102 there. Probably the easiest way of doing it. Go away now, thank you. 102. And we just got to look for one with my name on there. MD 102, Microsoft 365 Endpoint Administrator. So that one over there, click on that. And then just go through and answer whatever questions they've got over there. It does give you place to write stuff as well. So be good to get your feedback. This is the first time we are delivering the 102 as the new version of the course. It wasn't available when I delivered the course back in beginning of July. So it's just recently been released. There are a few things I don't like about it, such as labs that are missing. So add that to your survey over here. I would have liked to have seen a whip lab. We used to have a whip lab before. We don't have it anymore. I'd like to see whip lab in it. I'd like to see the co-management lab. They've taken that out of it. So there's a few labs there that I think they should put back in. So maybe add that in. If you feel that would have been useful to you, add that in. And a lot of you guys mentioned updates. They've taken the updates out. So add that into your comments as well. Microsoft will hopefully be looking at the comments when with these initial releases. So they might go and update the course to include that sort of stuff. But if you felt you didn't need updates, then don't put it in. But if you did feel it was necessary, then just mention that. I think that would be good. Other than that, we've got these 2 labs to do, and then you're done. So claim your badge, do my survey for me, complete your labs, and you're free to go. Also, make a note of the URL for labs, especially the guys in the classroom, because you've been working on the classroom computers. Remember, you've got access to this from home. So make sure you know how to get onto your labs. ddls.learnondemand.net. Just make a note of the URL. You've got access to your labs for, and if you want to check it, so I'm showing again, which I showed you on Monday. If you go to your Microsoft 365 Admin Center, go to your products, so billing and your products. And there you will see what you've got. So you've got basically your Security 5, EMS Security 5, Office 365, don't worry about those. You've got those 2, but those are the 2 you need for labs. And you've got till 27th of the 8th. So 27th of August, you've got access to this demo site. From the lab's perspective, they give you access for a long time, but they give you 6 months access on the lab. But yeah, effectively you've got 30 days or 3 weeks left because of your subscription you have. But yeah, there's no problem logging into the labs. You can log into the labs for the next 6 months if you want to.
So it doesn't matter that it says 20 hours and 48 minutes at the top.
Where you're seeing that this over here. So my lab will expire after 20 hours and 48 minutes. That's this lab over here. I can extend that if I want. If I go here and end the lab, remembering that's going to throw away all the configuration we've got on all these VMs, but whatever I configured here in my tenant will still remain.
Yeah.
When I restart the lab, I would need to just go and clear out my tenant if I wanted to go and restart from scratch. So you just need to manually clear out the stuff you configured in your tenancy. But when I go and restart my lab, this time would start from scratch again.
Yeah.
So that's just the timer we got for the lab, which when we go onto our lab, it says, go to this one here, 1 day and 16 hours. So when you restart your lab, you'll have 1 day and 16 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
And as you can see up here, it tells you your lab is available till January 31, 2024. So this lab is available to you from that to that date, but this particular course, effectively, it's only 3 more weeks because of the subscription that you've got in March.
With that subscription, can we just go and sign up for another one?
Yeah, of course you can.
Like,
You can go and do a trial. You can go and do a trial subscription.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And you can do E5 trials.
I think you can, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want you to put your credit card details in. So long as you're happy with putting your credit card details in, and make sure you cancel it before your credit card gets charged. But yeah, generally with the trials, they ask for credit card details.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the course. I hope you've all learned a lot.
Yep, it's been good. Thank you.
You are welcome. I hope I haven't killed you with too much knowledge.
No, not at all. It'll eventually get into my skull, so it's all.
It is a lot, isn't it, John?
It is, but you know, what do you expect?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you mind, David, just running through some of the Windows configuration design stuff in a bit more detail?
What do you want to know about that?
Is that a lab?
Oh, no, that is gone. It's no longer in this course. Yeah, it won't even be on your, it won't even be on the lab machines.
It's in the student book, but
It isn't. There is a little bit in the student book, yes. Oh, we covered that all. You mean what's in the student book? Okay.
yeah, Windows configuration design.
Yeah, we spoke about that just after tea time. So your Windows configuration designer. I don't think they've got it on these.
The WCD creates the provisioning package.
Yeah. That's fun. Yeah, they don't have it. They don't have it on these computers. Yeah, they haven't got it on them. Well, I mean, what you could do with your lab, you could simply go and get it from the Windows Store and install it and play around with it if you wanted.
Yeah.
But in the MD102, MD100, let's just see over here. So they used to go into quite a bit of detail in the MD100, which is retired. Time, computer authorization, implementation, yeah, there message.
I mean, yeah, what I might do is just download WCD and create my own provision.
Play around with it. Windows client environment, let's see what's here. It's on the computer. Imaging. Yeah. So in the 100 course, under this section over here, so you've got access. You've got access to this as well, Harrison. You can just go and search for MD100. Unit 409. So let's just go back one there. So this is under the first section. I'll just come all the way back to the beginning. So if you go and look for your MD100, install the Windows client. All you do is just go and search for that in on the internet. The first section of it, starting off, I'll go back one again. So this is basically it. So it's just telling you about the course, etc. Scroll down to where you get to self-paced learning.
Yeah.
And in this first learning path over here, the very top one, MD100, just go to that.
Yeah.
And scroll down to the very last section. So the last module there, evaluate deployment methods.
MD100 evaluate. Yeah.
And then the deployment methods under deployment tools, explore deployment tools. They talk there about the Windows image. So just scroll down a little bit in your Windows configuration designers over here. So they talk about it over here a little bit. Oh, they don't tell you much there, do they? Translation WDS, my toolkit. There's not a lot there. I did think there was a lab that we did in this as well. In this course.
There's no configurations if you want to.
And, just get a bit up.
You need WCD to do.
There you go.
provisioning.
Deploying Windows desktop settings using a provisioning package. So it's got a lab in here, provisioning a kiosk using configuration designer. That's config designer. So yeah, these first two labs
Yeah.
are basically provisioning packages labs. Now, maybe what you can do is modify your lab environment so that you can go and try these labs out. What you would need to do is install the Windows configuration design tool on your computer for it.
Yeah.
But if you want to go and try that, you've got access to the labs for a while, let's play around with that,
But
see.
I can have that anyway, right? Because when I'm done with the pre-provisioning package, I upload that to Intune.
Yeah.
And then pull it down on mine.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want to go play around with it and see how you do the configurations and that. It's a very cool tool. As we see from here, where was it? Where was it? Close it now. Yeah.
I've just downloaded it.
Yeah, so this is basically the start screen.
Yeah.
They've got all these little wizards. Provisioned desktop devices, HoloLens, kiosk, mobile devices, etc. So you click on this, and that would then open up a little wizard that you can go and configure your settings. You save that to a project, and then you can go into the detailed settings. And under your detailed settings, you can literally go and configure whatever you want. You can go and add administrative account to the computer. You can go and add certificates to the computer. Absolutely anything.
So it's almost like creating a task sequence for autopilot.
It's like group policy.
Initially. Because then when you join it to Intune, when you enroll it into Intune, and then you add it to a group, it'll apply.
Yeah, so basically you can use it to domain join a computer. So you can configure your provision package to do a domain join. You can configure it to do an Azure ID join. You can configure it to do an Azure ID registration.
Yeah.
You can configure it to enroll into Intune, whatever. Yeah, highly configurable.
So is the lab just doing an autopilot setup, like a full-blown autopilot?
Yeah, so what the lab is doing, it's resetting your computer because we got to pretend it's a brand new computer.
Yeah.
And after that, it then deploys the profile to that. By the way, guys, these labs just take forever. It's a very, very long lab, and you got to sit there and twiddle your thumbs for a very long time. So, so I suggest do your survey, make sure you've got your badge, etc., and start your lab, and then you can go off and do whatever else you need to do for today. Come back and have a look at it later on or tomorrow morning.
So we can do full autopilot and then repeat the same steps but do provisioning instead.
Yes.
Pre-provisioning, sorry.
Yeah. So you basically two labs on autopilot.
Yeah.
But they both just take such a long time.
Yeah.
They take a long time because autopilot's doing things. You're sitting there doing nothing. The lab's
Yeah.
busy chunking away. Okay, folks, I'm not going to do any strict times for lunch today because basically it's just labs now. So it is lunchtime if anybody wants to go and get their lunch. Basically, it is your own time from now on. We're basically just doing these two. Oops, where are we?
David, I need some help before the lunchtime.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're doing these 2 labs, the last 2 labs basically.
Yep.
Up
Yep.
to-
I'm performing that first lab.
All right, what's happening on your side here?
Yep. So I'm in PowerShell.
Okay, so you're
That's
creating your
CSV file.
device ID. Good.
Yep. So I'm not sure. Is this the result is
Yes,
this?
that's what your CSV file looks like. That's your padding in the CSV file.
Uh-huh.
That is it.
Okay. Yep. Now I can close it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that looks all good.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, it's a very confusing looking picture.
Yeah.
But is it? That's exactly what it is. It's all
Okay,
good.
cool. Yeah, thank
You're
you.
welcome.